Well, yeah, when I first heard that FUTO was being created, that there was going to be this big project to build non-evil tech, way back in 2021, I'm not technical myself, but I always thought there was one app that needed to be developed. So this was the first thing I ever talked to Aaron about when we were talking about FUTO projects, and it's a means of decentralized peer-to-peer verification. And I know you're all word cells, so I'll explain what that means in a second. You're probably familiar with top-down verification. If you've used Twitter, then that's the blue check mark next to your account, and that proves you're not an impersonator. It proves you're not a bot, ideally. In theory, a bot could sign up for Twitter's blue check system. And I won't go too much into the technical inner workings of Harbor, but I'll explain how it differs from those top-down verification systems. So Harbor is a peer-to-peer verification system. And that means any Harbor user can verify any claim made by any other Harbor user. So you're not reliant on a top-down centralized authority to do all the verifications for you. And the claims you can get verified on Harbor can be as complex or as simple as you like. The most basic being, of course, proving you're a human being and not a bot. And this is a fairly fundamental challenge that almost every online platform faces, distinguishing between real users and bot users. If you remember, during the acquisition of Twitter, this was a major point of dispute because Elon Musk argued that Twitter underestimated the number of bots on their platform, therefore he should pay less to buy Twitter. Because if the balance of bots versus regular users on your platform is going to affect the overall price of your company. So it can have a really big impact on the value of companies. So it's very, very important to be able to determine who's a regular human being using your platform and who's a bot. And the stakes of that are obviously rising with deep-faked AI, which is getting more and more sophisticated. In the future, you'll probably want to prove that a video of you or an audio clip of you is actually you and not deepfake. And the methods that platforms use to verify that someone's a human differ from platform to platform. Normally, you're asked for a phone number, an email address. There's also the captcha codes, which are less intrusive, but obviously quite annoying. And increasingly, platforms ask you to upload things like your driver's license, your government-issued ID, which of course is, can be a real problem when it comes to privacy. You might not want your government ID or any other sensitive data to be sitting on a centralized server, even if you trust the platform. Because the platform could be subject to data breaches, could be subject to subpoenas, laws could change requiring it to give up that data. A lot of reasons why you might not want to upload your driver's license or your passport to an online platform just to prove you're a real person. And then you have projects like WorldCoin. WorldCoin verifies that people are people rather than bots by scanning your eyeballs, and that's a pretty foolproof method of proving you're not an AI, scanning your retina information. But I think there's always going to be a large chunk of the public that won't want to give up that data. So Harbor solves the problem by giving control over verification back to users. Because anyone on Harbor can verify anyone else, that means they can also use any method to verify you. You can also verify a claim by scanning someone's QR code. So in theory, if you wanted to prove you're a human and you didn't want to upload anything to an online server, you could meet a trusted verifier in person, show them your ID, and have them scan your QR code to verify that you are who you say you are. And that still involves trusting an individual, but at least it doesn't involve trusting, a server that could be breached at some time. And the other thing about Harbor is you don't have to use your email address or phone number to sign up. If you ever used a cryptocurrency wallet, it works in much the same way. You have a private key, and that private key determines your allows you to log into the app. So there's no phone number, there's no email address, which can potentially be tied back to you. So you can use it completely anonymously. And that goes into like the really interesting use case of Harbor, which is verifying. So here we have like a very basic claim, verifying that you're not a bot, verifying that you're a real human being. But you can actually verify any claim on Harbor. So you could verify your employment information. Let's say, for example, you're an employee at a big tech company and you disagree with its DEI policies. Now you want to find like-minded people at your company because you don't just want to be a single voice in the wilderness. But how do you find those like-minded people? Well, you could do what James Damore did and use your real name and object to the policy. And you'd have to probably have to endure the same things he did, which is a media witch hunt and then a witch hunt from your fellow employees who disagree with you, and ultimately you get fired. So you might want to avoid that happening. Harbor allows you to do that by allowing you to verify your place of employment. So if you want to find people at your company who are on the same page as you, you can upload a claim to Harbor, find a trusted Harbor user to verify that claim, and then display that publicly on your social media profile, a throwaway anonymous account, and find people who are similar to you. And if they trust the Harbor user who verified you, they'll be able to trust your credential. So this unlocks a new kind of anonymity, because anonymity is already quite powerful, but if you're fully anonymous, no one knows your background, no one knows your expertise, no one knows your credentials. It's a lot harder to form networks in particular communities that can change those communities, whether that's a company or a campus or an institution. Harbor allows you to do that. So the other thing about Harbor is everything is very easily searchable. So if you had a verifier who was trusted to verify people at a particular company, it would be very easy to search for all the verifications that person had made. So this is very useful for organizing particular communities because you have the benefits of online searchability and virality because all of this information can be public, but you also have the benefits of anonymity because no one's name or identity or phone number or email address is attached to it. And you can imagine, it doesn't have to just be companies, you can imagine other fields making use of this. So say you're in academia and you're in a field that's fraught with controversy, something like population genetics, for example, and you're not allowed to investigate all the questions you want to investigate or conduct the research you want to research. You can use Harbor to verify your academic credentials and then, like similarly to this example, post those credentials online. Other people can get verified on Harbor, can find you, and then you have collaborators. And as long as you trust the Harbor verifier, then you can trust their credentials. And this really allows you to mobilize people who have a normal level of risk aversion. Normally, when there's an issue that carries the risk of censorship or negative media attention or financial blacklisting, the people who end up engaging with it tend to be people who have an unusually high level of risk tolerance. Those people are comfortable speaking out and organizing. They don't mind dealing with hostile media. They don't mind with dealing from pressure from activists. And they often get a lot of attention because there are so few of them relative to the general population. But then you have a much larger group of people who aren't so risk tolerant, either because of their temperament or because they have more to lose. And unless you're able to mobilize those people, I don't think you can really create effective movements because you're only going to be relying on the highly risk tolerant people. So Harbor really allows people who aren't so risk tolerant to organize because it creates this new method of anonymity where you can prove your credentials, you can verify your credentials, you can verify anything about yourself, but you don't have to use your real name. And so what this allows is it allows movements to be built and critical mass to be developed without anyone taking serious risks until the required number is reached. If you follow debates about cancel culture and censorship over the last decade, you might assume that the purpose of cancel culture is to prevent speech from taking place. to undermine the free marketplace of ideas and prevent people from having debates on contentious issues. But I would argue that the deeper purpose beyond that is to prevent people from organizing, and specifically from preventing people with influence and resources, people with the power to actually change things, from achieving the required critical mass. Because once people achieve critical mass, the status quo can be overturned quite quickly. Social scientists and economists actually spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out what level of critical mass is required to change a status quo opinion or a norm. And both social science and economics are inexact sciences, to say the least. The most widely cited study puts it at about 25%, and this found that if 25% of a group agreed on a position, they would eventually persuade a majority of that group to come around to their view. There's also the 3.5% rule, which was arrived at by Erica Chenoweth, who is Harvard Kennedy School's leading expert on civil resistance movements. So she's looked at things like the Arab Spring and various color revolutions in the former Soviet Union, and she thinks that if just 3.5% of a population mobilizes, that's all that's required to create political change or catalyze the resignation of a political leader. I don't know if that's true or not, but she's very popular with the whole regime change crowd, and they certainly have an incentive to turn this kind of thing into an exact science. Anyway, whatever the magic tipping point number is, whether we're talking to create change, whether we're talking at a company or an institution or across a whole society, it's a lot less than 50%, which kind of explains the function of cancel culture, even if it doesn't necessarily explain the motivations. The function of cancel culture is a way of preventing that critical mass from being developed by sort of clamping down on anyone who speaks out, to make sure that anyone who agrees with that person doesn't organize, doesn't form networks, and don't form movements. Because when socially disfavored viewpoints are allowed to coalesce and organize and build up to that critical mass, it doesn't take long for that social disfavor to disappear. And that's why Haber, I think, beyond just solving basic technical questions like how do you prove you're not a bot, has the potential to be a really powerful tool for social and political change, because it allows you to form networks using the virality and searchability of the internet, while also allowing all participants within the network to shield their identities until critical mass is achieved. And of course, it can also be used for just basic journalistic things like whistleblowing. So, if you used to work in the disinformation industry and want to talk about that, then you can verify that that used to be your job, and then you can just post about it wherever you like. And that sort of thing is the vision I had when I originally talked to Erin about this, when I pitched Erin on this back in 2021. So it's very exciting to see it fully developed and ready for use. You can actually go on the App Store right now and search for FUTO Haber, and you'll be able to download it and start verifying people. So everyone do that.